Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of the Two POGs podcast. My name is Alan. I am your host, and I am joined today by my good buddy Anthony from Maine Veterans Project.
How's it going?
Very excited to get this first episode going. Going to do some really awesome things with this. I'd like to start by saying, one of the reasons we want to start this podcast is because we want to grow awareness for both of our organizations. Anthony, like I said, is with Maine Veterans Project. I have my own charitable organization, Not Your Average Nurses Foundation.
What is your role with Not Your Average Nurses Foundation, Alan?
I am the president and founder of that organization. It's going all right. I'm pretty excited to see what comes in the future.
Yeah.
What do you do over at MVP?
I am the director of programming over at Maine Veterans Project. It's just a fancy title that just means I do everything that my coworker doesn't do.
We want to grow awareness for what it is that we do within our organizations, and we're hoping to grow this to a point where this can become a revenue source for both of our organizations. And that said, any revenue that is generated, a portion of that is going to get donated to both of our organizations, which that's really awesome. And we want to get some really cool guests on here. We're definitely going to get some guests with some name recognition. But we also want to get some people that just want to tell their stories. And so with that, we're actually going to bring on our very first guest on the channel. He's a 26-year Army veteran, 5 combat deployments. I want to welcome Ben to the channel. Come on over. Have a seat. Awesome. So thanks for joining us.
No problem.
This is really cool to have you here. I I know it's kind of weird just coming over to some random person's house that you never met before and, agreeing to tell your story and everything. So 26 years in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
What, did you join at 18 or?
I joined, I was 20 years old.
You joined when you were 20?
21. Grew up in Washington County, small town. Went to University of Maine right after high school, and drank and partied my way out of my my time there. So I got a year there. I took about a year to get out of myself and realize I was going to go in the military. Actually, I was going into the Navy as a nuke engineer. They had issue with my eye, and so I wouldn't sign up with the Army. My father was in the Army. And my family had been in the military in some fashion. So I joined the Army, and off I went.
Nice. All right. And so what was it that you did in the Army exactly?
I worked in intelligence. I was an analyst, intelligence analyst. It was a 96 Bravo at first. It was transitioned to 35 POGs, and I ended up 35 Zulu.
All right. Cool. And so you did your 26 years. Was that the plan once you got in? Were you thinking about making it a career? Because, like, me personally, when I joined the Marine Corps, I knew that it probably wasn't going to be a career thing for me. It was a step to get to where I wanted to go.
Well, when I first joined, it was for my own personal growth. I wanted to get more discipline and more organization in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in late 96. I was in 99 is when the USS Cole was hit, and I was in Saudi Arabia at the time. I worked in the U.S. Embassy there. And things started picking up in the terrorism world, and then, of course, 9/11 happened. I wasn't sure I was going to make it a career, but once that happened, and we started going to combat a lot, going to war, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Once I got into that and was leading troops and having that additional responsibility and taking care of those younger soldiers, that's what I wanted to do.
All right. All right. So with your deployments, what was your first deployment that you did?
My first one was a shooting one. It was right after 9/11 in November, the day of Thanksgiving. We started moving to Afghanistan in 2001. I did a couple of trips back and forth and getting our guys into Kandahar, where our guys were going. We were linking up because I was in the Army's only counterterrorism office at the time.
Yep.
And all of our guys were specialized in individuals that were within their terrorist network. So we were parsed out to different special operations teams. And I unfortunately, but fortunately, was on orders for a nominative assignment out in Hawaii with POW MIA recovery unit. So I wasn't able to stay there when it came time for me to PCS. That was one of the ones that you couldn't get out of. I'm glad I did, because of the opportunities that gave me. But I hated leaving my guys behind, my guys and gals at the time, for Afghanistan. So with that, I got pulled up to Hawaii with, it was at the time, Joint Task Force Full Accounting, which merged with Central Identification Laboratory of Hawaii, which is a full-on anthropological laboratory that does DNA analysis. They do bone reconstruction of human remains. Merged with them and took on the worldwide mission to bring home the remains or find individuals that were lost all the way back. World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, Cold War.
Oh, wow.
So we went all over the world with that, and that was great. Got some good stories out of it. And I got to travel to a lot of places. And not most people go. I did a tour in North Korea. We flew into Pyongyang, went up to the Chosin Reservoir, and that being a Marine, you should be familiar with that one.
Yeah, I'm in Korea myself.
Up in Chosin, we actually got out on the battlefield, found remains, found pieces of the weapons where the Chinese came over the Yellow River and then pushed the Marines back.
That's incredible that they even let you go over there.
So we had the government had an agreement with North Korea that there was a significant amount of money we would pay them, as well as whenever we went in, all of our equipment stayed behind. No weapons, no uniforms, no intelligence personnel, and no collection on them. And we flew in from China. We got to spend 10 days in China and Beijing waiting on our visas to be approved, because you had to go into a communist country from another communist country. And flew in to Pyongyang and we got two teams, we went in different directions. And leaving the country, we were searched. They drove us down to the DMZ in Panmunjom, and they searched all our stuff, make sure we weren't smuggling anything out, any images, any propaganda or anything like that. And we walked across the bridge right into South Korea. It's called Freedom Village, where the North Koreans are faced off with the South Koreans. There's all those iconic images of the South Korean looking straight at.
Yeah, that's where they
train them.
Yeah, that's where they've done. That's where they do all the meets and everything now. Yep. I think that's where
where Trump met with.
Yeah, and I've been there. And that's I went and put my toe over the line there. I've technically been in, even if it was just a toe.
You still touch the soil.
It was that building that they actually have where they do all the meetings and everything, buildings? Where half of it is in North Korea and half of it's in South. And
where you see the iconic photos of them just staring at each other, just waiting for someone to do something.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Any good stories from Korea? I had some fun in Korea.
Not so much good stories that you'd want out, but
get that.
Encountered with little people at certain bars when you first get there. The first tour down into the Ville. Would you experience this? Some trips if you...
Did you ever go to Osan Air Base?
No, I was up in Camp Facey with 2-9 infantry, 9,000 infantry there.
Okay. I only ask because outside Osan Air Base, you might have heard of her, and she had a reputation, Song Tong Sally. You never heard of Song Tong Sally?
No, we weren't allowed down there.
Yeah. So
it sounds like you got a story to tell.
So this is a lady, for anybody that doesn't know who Song Tong Sally is. She is a lady of the evening that likes to walk around and try to get with service members.
Mm-hmm.
She is not a pretty woman, let me tell you. She was beat with an ugly stick and a half. And so my experience with her was she would literally walk around. She could recognize a service member from a mile away, and she would walk over and she would hit you in the dick with a water bottle. And that was her way of propositioning you. She'd be like, "Oh yeah," and hit you in the dick with a water bottle. And of course, everybody avoided that situation. But I do remember there is one video where she was really going after this one service member, and he straight up drop kicked her, like full on, came off the ground and planted both feet into this lady and dropped her. And yeah, I was just curious. I was just curious. I've never been to Osan and heard of Song Tong Sally, but
Imagine every base has.
yeah.
Be surprised.
Actually, that unit I was in with the POW recovery, that gave me my best story ever. And I've told this 100 times to different people, and they all get a kick out of it. So when we did missions in North Korea, we didn't stay there past the actual mission time, because once you're done, you have to write up all your reports and all your findings for each individual investigation you went out and did. And when we had remains, they did a repatriation ceremony in Japan. They'd fly straight to Japan, and they turned the remains over to U.S. forces there. And we were there to do all the report writing and assist with all the further movement of the remains. And we had finished our report writing. We were out in town, and everyone was having a good time. And I was with a couple of Marines, one of our Green Beret docs, and an EOD guy. And we were out in town, and we went into this bar. It's like a dance club in Japan. And we were the only non-Japanese in there, and the dance floor was empty. We were sitting at a little booth up adjoining the dance floor, and we'd been out for a while, so we were pretty well off. There was a monk in there, and he was doing this Tai Chi type all these little moves out on the dance floor, like he was dancing, but he was doing his little moves. And I was pretty well drunk, and I saw this, and I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was laughing, and he started doing his little moves and worked his way over to me and reached back into last Sunday, smacked the crap out of me. Now, this dude was only about 5 feet tall. I'm 6'5". At the time, I was about 230, 240. And all the guys I was sitting there with, I'm just sitting there in shock. And they're like, what are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? There's two things you can do. You can go get your ass whooped by a monk, and have everyone laugh about that, or you beat the hell out of them if you were actually able to, and then you cause an international incident. There was no good way out of that situation. Yeah. And I was just shocked, and I didn't know what to do, so I finished my beer, and I'm at the hotel, sold.
Well, yeah,
It's way out.
Yeah, because over there, it's a in Japan. Anything that you do in Japan, like, it's tenfold. If you get in a fight out in town when you're stateside, like, it's not a big deal. Like, you still get in trouble and everything.
Right.
Over there, though, if you smack a monk, that's going to be everywhere. The headlines are going to be all over the place, and that happened so many times when I was in Okinawa. I mean, when I was in Okinawa, it was probably the worst time because they had actually closed drinking off base. Like, you could have a beer off base. Obviously, everybody took advantage of this, but, like, I can't remember what the name was. It First Street or something like that. It was outside Kadena Air Base, and this street used to be lined with bars. And actually, they started to do really poorly, obviously, when all the service members were no longer allowed to drink out in town. So this place was closed down. My last 6 months, they opened drinking back up out in town, and they changed the curfew so you could come back at, like, I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m. at that point in time. Those bars quickly started coming back. But we definitely had a lot of issues. We had, like, one guy that ended up breaking into some random Japanese national's house, and they just woke up one morning and he's, like, sleeping on their floor. And then he got in a fight with them because they were trying to kick him out of their house. And so that was an issue.
Yeah, I had something like that when I was at Fort Leonard Wood, because that's where I went for Motor T school. And we had a colonel that was in charge of all the Marines that were on the base, and he made it so we weren't allowed to use the taxis to go out into town anymore. And it got to the point where the taxi drivers were complaining to the base. They're like, the Marines are the only ones that actually would use us because everyone else, they were like enough cars. We weren't.
Yeah.
So we got confined to being on base for about 2 months before the taxi companies badgered the base enough for the colonel to lift it. Yeah.
We're going out of business.
We're going out of business because the Marines aren't taking taxis out in town anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, obviously, you were over in the Asian Pacific and everything. Any good stories from your other deployments, other places that you've been?
I don't know how in depth you really want to go.
As much as you're willing to, as much as you're willing to share.
Level,
Yeah. I don't want this podcast to be, I want it to be no holds barred
Gotcha.
here. So,
Okay.
it's feel free to speak your mind. Quite frankly, I wouldn't even mind cracking a beer. It might be a little early for some of us, but
Since when?
you like Michelob?
I like beer.
You like beer?
Do it.
All right, hold on just a sec.
So also, we're gonna have our first podcast turn into the drunk podcast. Usually, you wait until you got about 10-15 under your belt before you do that.
Oh,
Screw it.
great thing about having a studio in my basement bar.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone can hear it.
There you go. All right. Yeah, so where else did you go?
So after I did 3 years with that POW recovery unit, and I re-enlisted in not much of a PCS. I was on Hickam Air Force Base in Camp Smith in Hawaii, and I re-enlisted to go to Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. So I went up there to 25th Infantry Division with 235 Infantry Battalion, Cacti, and as soon as I got there, off to Iraq. So that was in Kirkuk, northern Iraq, and that was a good deployment. Terrible deployment as well. We lost a lot of guys on that one. We were on a 12-month deployment, and at about 11 months, we were informed that we were extended. Our replacements from 10th Mountain started arriving. The torch parties had already gotten there, and we were extended for another 3 months. Lost a lot of buddies on that one. One of the days we had 9 V-bits hit us out in town, all in different places, all day. They hit us at the gate, hit our commander, hit our scouts, hit all of our companies that were out trying to secure the city, because it was erupting that day. Lost 14 guys in a helicopter incident. Half our scout platoon went burned in, and one of my lieutenants, who had taken over platoon leader for the scout platoon after that V-bit hit the gate at the base, took out their platoon leader. Our second lieutenant and our officer, first lieutenant Derek Dolby, he went over with them, and they ended up on an extraction, burning it on a helicopter, and they all died on that. And I was watching that on the UAV. So I saw the whole thing, and then we had to go out and recover the remains. They were actually in a mass burial out in the National Memorial Cemetery in the Pacific out in Hawaii. They couldn't pull the remains apart. They couldn't tell who was whose. They were all pretty well mangled, but they're all together. And it was actually last week was the anniversary of it. So we lost a lot of guys on that deployment, and it was a long deployment. After that one, we went back to Hawaii, and we're already up on notice that a different brigade wasn't quite combat effective at the time.
Yeah.
So we jumped ahead on Ashar and went right back. We went to Samara.
What was that turnaround time?
10 months.
10 months on that one.
For another year long there. Fought Brasdil Mora in Samara, where the Gold Mosque was in Iraq. And that's when they were hitting us with the RKG-3s, those armor-piercing grenades that were for tanks.
Yeah.
They'd throw them, they'd have a parachute on them, that comes down on top of the tank. But they were using them against the side of our Humvees and MRAPs, stuff there. A lot of missions out of that place. When we actually closed the base down, that was when we were downsizing and cleared out of Iraq. So we lost some guys on that deployment, but we were more isolated on that one, and a lot of rocket attacks. I mean, I was walking to the chow hall through the chews up to the other side of the base. It was only battalion minus on that fob, so it was a real small fob.
Yeah.
And we're going up to the chow hall, and going through the chews, I heard this ticking, and there was a rocket sticking out of the ground, air-to-air rocket that they were using that had the flechettes in it, so it would burst, and all these little darts would come out and pierce through everything. It didn't go off, so we had the
Still just sitting there.
yeah,
checking.
I mean, someone's shell.
And that's exactly what you want to walk out to.
Yeah. There's a lot of that there. A lot of patrols, a lot of overnights out in the middle of nowhere, sleeping in the turret or on the steering wheel of your Humvee or MRAP. So yeah, 2 Iraq deployments out of that, and then from there I went to Fort Drum, I went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, Southern Arizona. I was there to be a bowling instructor, a basic officer leader course. So I was training brand new lieutenants straight out of college or whatever commissioning source they had. And it was basically their basic training. We were doing basic marksmanship, land navigation, day, night, small unit tactics, six lanes, all the basic stuff.
Yep.
And they fall onto their MOS specific training. That was a rough one. It was a 6-week course compressed down to 11 days. And we had days night, and we didn't have enough instructors because the courses were overlapping because there was such a backlog of students. We were just going from 3 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And some nights we were out there in the field, and it was just rotating constantly. There was no raids, there was no nothing. Just going. And it took a toll on a lot of us, but we did what we had to do. I mean, it's not what our buddies were doing downrange and what we had been doing downrange, because we were all combat soldiers. That we had Cav Scouts, we had snipers, we had artillerymen, we had tankers, we had intelligence, we had everything there. And we were doing the land. That was one of my specialties, land navigation. And during the training part, the terrain was huge, steep, up and down, up and down, up and down, and they go for a few miles, and they ran full kit. And one of them comes up to me at the end point with their paper, with all their quarters they went to, and all the codes from the points there. And it's okay. Pull out your notepad, change of mission, prepare to copy. And I said, "There's a downed aircraft at this location. You need to go there and survey the site and come back with your findings." And this brand new lieutenant says to us, our first class and 2 staff sergeants that were with me, "You have no idea what it's like to be out here in this heat with all this stuff on. How dare you send us out again?" Oh, buddy. So the Major Calnez was there, and he lost his mind on that lieutenant. Gave them a basic understanding of where we had been and what we came from.
Was he a butter bar?
Oh yeah, they were straight out of ROTC, West Point.
Yeah, just especially me being at Quantico for.
Oh, so well, yeah. But I learned a lot from a lot of the different personnel there, and one of the things that base was 8 clicks from the Mexican border, and we had a lot of illegals coming across the mountains. So it was almost a mile high there in Sierra Vista, outside of Fort Huachuca, and huge mountain range there, and that was basically the border, but they were coming across that. And when we were doing our land navigation stuff, we used Motorola radios, and we found out they were using them. They were calling out checkpoints and stuff. And we had the Border Patrol on speed dial. We were catching them left and right out there. We went out to East Range and to set up some convoy lanes. And on our drive out there, we saw someone on the side of the road. It was a woman, a Mexican woman, giving birth all by herself. So we had a life flight come in and took her back to the hospital, gave birth in the States. And that's why she came over. She wanted to have her child in the U.S.
Yeah.
So it'd be hers, baby. Yep.
Yeah.
And we were catching them left and right with the Border Patrol, and they were up there watching us on the mountains when we were up there doing training. And they armed us while we were up there because they were coming through our encampments at night.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just the trail to get up to Tucson and push out further. Because some of it was drugs, some of it was just wanting to get into the U.S.
Yep.
Everywhere from Mexicans to Dominicans to Chinese. And while I was there, even one of them was about to get caught. He was up in the mountains. There was a group of them. They started a fire, which ended up burning half the mountains, half of them fast.
Oh, boy.
I was at Hereford, I think it was the town. Pushed out towards Tombstone, coming in on Sierra Vista. And we were out there for 2 weeks fighting fires. Got cut off by the fire. Had a bunch of the privates that were there for their initial training. And they would give them to us to go up to certain areas to do brush clearing and cutting fire breaks and stuff like that. And we got cut off by the fire. And we had 5 tons and 2.5 out there transporting brush and stuff. And we threw them on the back of it. We had to drive through the fire. We had to cross the road.
Yeah.
To get them out of there. They came in with the planes, the red slime stuff, or the flame retardant, whatever it is.
All the red stuff that they drop. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
I don't know if I maybe we'll get one on at some point. Maybe tell us about it.
But we got him out, and then we didn't lose anyone with that stuff. But some of the guys were out there fighting fires, cutting trees, and fire burning on their house. They had to do a mandatory evacuation of their area where they were living. But the base said, no, you can't go. You need to be out here. My family's getting evacuated, and I can't go get them out of here. It wasn't mine. It was one of my buddies, Brad Sullivan. But it took an extra day to get him released to go evacuate his family.
Yeah.
Wife, kids, pets. He didn't lose his home. They ended up catching a fire before he got to his home, but still, fire burning down in your house. You're out working when you need to get your family out. But it was a good experience there. I learned a lot of personalities and how to treat and manage different people. I mean, you got with your brand new lieutenants, those are educated privates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are private.
And and sometimes depending on which one you're dealing with, educated isn't always the best term either. Because let me tell you,
education does not equate to intelligence.
No.
Big difference.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm glad you're getting to share this. And I want to ask because this is something that I feel is going to be really good for again a lot of people. As far as I know, you don't have any like name recognition or anything. Like you said you do your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I just started that up.
Yeah, so you do fishing and everything on that. But aside from that, like you don't necessarily have you have your friends and your families, people you serve with. They know who you are. But beyond that, like it's not like you're not going to be recognized out.
No, absolutely not.
And I was talking to him about it before we started. There's a lot of podcasts out there where they get veterans on, but these are all veterans that everybody knows from one place or another. They get Medal of Honor recipients, and that's awesome. And we have the utmost respect for them. But someone like yourself, I think it's good that you get to share your story. You had it sounds like a fantastic military career. I mean, 26 years, that's awesome. But there's also a lot of guys out there, again, we talked about this, that I feel kind of struggle with feeling like their service might not have been all that significant. And I think getting to share that is going to really help people. And that's why it was really cool to kind of get you on here and talk about it. Any other stories that you want to share about your service, or?
I mean, I could talk all day. different things that happened. But there's plenty. If you want me to line some out, I'll line some out. And
I'll tell you what, it sounds like you have a fair amount that we could talk about. So we could probably actually have you come back on if you wanted.
Sure.
Yeah, we can always do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure people will love to see you back on here. Now, I mean, you're out now.
Mm-hmm.
You said you retired.
How long have you been out? Let's start.
I retired. I was 24. I retired October 31st, 22. So almost 2 years.
Okay.
Almost 2 years now.
Yeah. All right.
I was just taking some time for myself.
Yeah.
Hey, that's awesome. And so,
especially after doing the same thing for 26 years, you kind of just want to sit back and go, okay, I don't want to do anything for a little while.
yeah.
And I'm sure that's how you kind of ended up with the YouTube channel, because you were kind of just like at home. It's like, okay, I'm bored. I need to do something now.
Idle hands,
Yeah.
So I tried to do something to keep myself busy. Recently, my parents live over in Old Town or Milford.
Yeah.
My mother had a stroke and passed away unexpectedly in April last year, and my father's never written a check in his life, never paid a bill in his life. My mom, old school, they were married 53 years.
Traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a lot to help him manage his money, because he didn't know what money was going where.
Yeah.
Straighten out his bills, and the loss of her income, her Social Security issues on, getting him on a budget where he wasn't going to struggle. And there's a lot of emotional, he's a veteran as well, Vietnam era, but there's a lot of struggling that he's done with coping with loss of his wife, and managing his own day to day, and keeping busy, keeping him active. He's in his 70s. He's probably right now. I'm going over this afternoon, building an addition onto a shed out back. He's a bluegrass musician. He goes out to festivals and plays all the time. My uncle lives up here as well. His brother, who's been a recording artist for just 20 some years. We've got a bunch of CDs with his old bluegrass bands, but they're getting back into their heritage stuff, playing Celtic music. So our family's Irish and came in through Canada, like first generation American.
I don't know.
My dad was born in Canada because the hospital burnt down, so he would have been. But keeping him active, keeping him from going down rabbit holes, and what do I do now?
Yeah, and so I'm a nurse, so I see it a lot. When you hit a certain age and certain things happen like that, like losing, a significant other and everything, you see a lot of decline if people don't stay active. And so that's awesome that you're doing what you can to, keep him moving and everything. Because like it seems to me like retirement for a lot of people is actually like one of the worst things that can happen to them.
Well, yeah, when you're on the go, and all of a sudden you stop.
Yeah, like
things starts to catch back up with you.
And I heard this from multiple different people that I talked to, multiple people that I've cared for over the years, where they said, I used to be all over the place. When I was working, I felt awesome, and within a couple years of being retired and not really having a whole lot to do, maybe not feeling like they had a purpose or something, they decline quickly. They get sedentary and everything, and it's good to keep people moving. There was one guy that I knew though. He looked like he was about your age, and yeah, he was like 85, I think. He was like 85, and I asked him, I was like, what is it that you do? And he's like, I've kept busy. He's like, I retired in my 40s.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't remember what it is that he did. I think he owned a couple businesses or something like that. And he's like, I retired in my 40s, but like I always had something to do. And I think it's really important to keep the
stay busy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Took almost 2 years now. It takes some time for myself, but while I was in, I was able to save my GI Bill, save that for my son. So he's got my full GI Bill, and now being 100% disabled, any school in the University of Maine system or any vocational school in the state.
Yeah, it's free. If I remember correctly, it's any in the UMO system that pertains to either college. Yeah, but it also will pertain to spouses and children.
Yeah, so he's got that for free plus my GI Bill, so he's taken care of. He's 15 right now. I took my time and used the resources that were available. I got 2 degrees while I was in. Yeah. I got associate's degree in intelligence operations, and I got my bachelor's in psychology.
Oh, wow.
Bachelor of science, psychology.
Nice.
And that was part of what I talked to, I think, some of the MVP guys who got wearing hats.
Depends on how long you go. Might have been.
He was an older guy.
No, it might be Doc.
Yeah.
And some of the guys that work at the VA, because when we come back from our deployments, we have to actually talk to the psychologists, psychiatrists, and stuff to see how we were handling everything. But early on in the ward, and even later on, the people we were talking to, you got a 6-year-old woman who didn't have any association with the military. There's no relatability there. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of the guys who were struggling with their PTSD stuff coming back,
trying to talk to someone who doesn't understand.
Exactly. Yeah. And I talked to one of the guys that runs the support groups over at the VA here in Bangor, and something I was looking at doing once I got myself back together. Being one of those people that's relatable. I've been shot. I've been blown up. I've been all over the world. I've seen people kill people. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to someone that understood what I was talking about, and you could see them, they're just the look in their eyes, they understand, they fully understand what you're talking about. Like talking to you guys, you know what I'm talking about. It's easy. Right. Easy to open up with those people. And a lot of the soldiers coming, soldiers, sailors, Marines, everybody coming back, they didn't have that relatable person to talk to. And that's why I did the degree in psychology, so that potentially after I'm retired, that would be something I give back to them, to the soldiers.
Kind of like a peer group or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they run over there, the BCA.
Yeah.
And being one of those people that is easy to talk to, and I'm not judgmental, and I know when you say certain things. I know what that means.
Right. And you're not going to get offended because someone says something that, like,
And I think,
like anyone who's never been in the military or has never been around that kind of stuff, the stuff that we talk about and stuff that we laugh about,
yeah, very dark.
in very dark sense of humor, like people who will just catch parts of conversations between two vets, they don't understand it, and they'll just kind of give you that look. It's like, did they really just say like killing a baby was funny? And it's like, well, you kind of have to laugh about shit like that, because if you don't, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, the sad thing is shit like that happens in,
Exactly.
in war. It happens. It's unfortunate. Nobody wants it to happen, but it does. And it's unfortunate reality that anybody that serves and does deploy has to face. I never got to deploy. I wanted to. And it sucks because when I joined, it was kind of like, originally I had to go infantry, and it was like, no, you're not. I'm not signing the contract if you're going infantry. So I asked for something else. I asked for combat engineer, and that's where I ended up, doing the electrical engineering thing. And when I went in, I was like, I wanted to be a cop, and so I was like, well, if I don't deploy, it's not the worst thing. And then I got in, and I got to my first duty station, and I was like, this sucks. I want to deploy really bad. I'm stuck in Okinawa. And so, like, on occasion, they would ask for, like, volunteers and stuff.
Oh,
and so
different units.
Yeah, so they would occasionally, like, send us out to, Afghanistan. But my shop over there was so small, like, we literally had 3 guys on my own MLS. They would always pull from the larger support squadrons and everything like that. So, like, we all, like, half my shop always put our names on the volunteer list anytime that they were asking for people to go over, and they were never going to pull us. And of course, then I got out to my next duty station after I did my 2 years in Okinawa, and on Miramar, my unit was deploying. They were set to come back 2 months after my EAS. And I had already, like, made the decision that I was going to school and everything. I knew it wasn't a career thing, and I had considered, like, extending, but I was like, is it worth it to do that deployment? Like, I had considered it, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me to extend to go over there. And I mean, they were going to Kuwait. They were supporting, I think at the time was Iraqi Sabre. That was when they were pushing ISIS out of Iraq. And like I said, I wanted to go, but it never worked out for me. And which sucks. I mean, it bothers me sometimes to think about it, because there's a lot of guys that I served with that, they did deploy. They got shot at and everything. And sometimes I feel like, like I said, it's good because there's a lot of people that probably don't feel like their service is as significant. Like I feel like that sometimes. And
trust me, I get the feeling too.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's anything diminishing your service. I think because one way or another, you were assisting those who were going forward. Whether you were in forward or not, you did something that helped the people that were going forward.
Yeah.
We had people that didn't pull out of certain units I was with, but they were constantly in communication with people forward and sending them information and products that they could use for their missions, and they were always in support of it, whether it be medical side, whether it be intelligence side, whatever, supply side even.
Yeah,
you were supporting them, so you were a part of the overall machine that was going. So you can't say was it important, or you can, but I don't think it's valid to say my service wasn't important, because one way or another, everybody played a part.
Yeah, and we kind of chatted about that too.
Yeah.
Just saying, like, and I will say I hear it from grunts a lot. Obviously this podcast is called Two POGs.
Yeah,
we're playing on words.
That for a reason.
But we talked about it, and we hear it from grunts most often. We're like, you don't have that combat deployment under your belt, and here's the thing. You don't get to do anything that you do without the logistics behind it. You don't get your ammo without, all your admin guys. So you don't have your power without my field, the utilities guys out there running all the equipment on their forward operating bases. You don't get anywhere without motor training.
Yeah.
This guy,
You don't get
here.
anything out there
Yeah.
unless it's
So your whole air wing, they're the ones that bring in all your supplies and everything, get everything out to you. And so, yeah, I always try to think about that when I feel like I'm not, when I feel like my service wasn't what I wanted it to be. I always remember that, you know, hey, this is the hand that I was dealt, and you know, it still, like, my role was important one way or another.
Absolutely.
So we're coming up on the end of the episode here. I really definitely wanted to talk about more of your interests and everything like that. We'll give you a second to give a plug. What's your YouTube channel?
Yeah, my YouTube channel, it's Top Shelf Fishing.
Top Shelf Fishing. Okay.
all right.
We got a few videos from some tournaments, stuff I've gone on. Some of the national tournaments down in South Carolina. I fished down there for the Bassmasters. And I'm doing some local ones up here. Last year was my first year doing it. This year I'm in my second season. And I picked up doing the YouTube thing. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. Been talking to a lot of different people from different places in the U.S. and helping each other out. Some of the pro anglers, some of the not so pro anglers like myself, but everyone has a little piece of what I wanted to get into, and it's helped.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I started doing my own YouTube channel. It's changed a lot over the years. It started out as what I think I picked an A. It was like Born of the Original 13 or something like that. Because I was like, 13 colonies. Maine technically was part of Massachusetts, but, you know, something patriotic like that. And I originally started it because I wanted to do like a gun tube channel. And then I realized, like, oh, YouTube is not friendly to that sort of thing anymore. So I kind of changed my aspirations a little bit. And then when I became a nurse, it became Not Your Average Nurse. And of course, that's where the name of my organization comes from, Not Your Average Nurses Foundation. The bit of a play on words there. And so, yeah, now I do a lot of automotive stuff. I haven't been able to do that. Unfortunately, I had to sell off all my projects that I had, and I had to take a break from YouTube. But, you know, we're going to have this podcast on my channel and everything. And, you know, I'll find your channel and I'll put a little link down there if anybody wants to go to check it out. And yeah, I'd love to have you back on the channel if you want, and we'll get you on here.
Sounds like we got a few more stories to get into.
Yeah,
I'm about halfway through the time.
So yeah, again, thank you for coming on. It was really good to meet you today, and yeah, we'll get you on here for another episode sometime in the future.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. We appreciate anybody that's watching this. If you like this video, you want to see more like them, you know, feel free to subscribe to the channel. You know, check us out. We're going to come up with some different ways for you guys to support, working on like a Patreon type thing. Right now, there's not going to be a whole lot of benefits that we can offer, but any little bit helps. You know, working on some ranks, you know, the boot. The boot rank, you know, your terminal for mafia, you know, something like that maybe, and just a few different ways to try and garner some sort of support on here, and maybe we can get something coming in, maybe increase our production value a little bit.
Yeah,
that'd be nice. But yeah, it's like I said, if you like this, please share it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're gonna try to drop a video every 2 weeks. We got some good guests lined up, as far as a little more name recognition going on. Pretty excited, and there might be a little hint out here as to who that's going to be.
Yeah, there might be something on the table that might draw attention to the guests that we're going to have up.
So same thing behind me. We got some other people lined up. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.
So yeah.